So a few weeks ago, I set myself a goal to make a road trip down to LA for the RLCS Winter Major. My car wasn't quite ready for it, or a big road trip like that, so I had to do some last second maintenance to it and set it up. And while I was at it, I decided to knock out my fuel injectors because I had a bit of a leaky injector at the time. And I figured, hey, why not see if these eBay injectors work? And if they don't, I'll just go to the dealership and buy some new Index 12s. And if they do, awesome. I'll share about, for the N54 community or the 335 community about some sick little, budget Index 12 injectors that could work. So with that in mind, I basically just started tearing down my car, obviously, got my tools out, started getting it going. Much like with any of these jobs, you're going to start by just taking off your, your plastic covers in the top and getting it broken down. But I had a much bigger goal in mind than just doing injectors. Obviously, this is going to be a road trip. I had to do brakes. I had to do a valve cover gasket because there's an oil smell going around in my engine bay and interior. So really, this is going to be a much bigger project, but this was the first weekend, so I figured, all right, let's get the injectors done. Let's get it retuned in these injectors, and let's make sure that this car is still running good. Let's make sure we have a good, reliable car for this road trip. And as we're going to kind of run into here with this video, we ran into a couple of hiccups along the way, a couple of problems. These injectors were not exactly legitimate, and I'll show you a bit of what I mean that a little bit later. But, in the opening, you kind of saw the injectors squirting around everywhere, just weren't sealing. Alright, we got the first one off here. You should use a line wrench on this, or technically speaking, they'll say you should, but these nuts are so big and sturdy, honestly. Using a normal wrench, because they shouldn't be on that tight at the end of the day. So basically, like I was showing there for any of you that are looking at doing this kind of project for yourself, you can basically use a couple of hand tools to get most of these fuel rails and fuel lines off to get your injectors out. The most specialty tool you're really going to want to need, or what I would kind of recommend, is getting the slide hammer that they sell for these kind of jobs, where you screw it onto the overall the injector line, or the threaded line that the hose kind of goes onto, and so you can really just get a good yank and pull these out. For most of them, I was following a bit of a breakdown that what's his name on YouTube. There's a vehicular DIY. Yeah. Vehicular DIY has a great overall tutorial on doing this, where he uses a hook, tool to kind of just yank them out by hand. But on Injector 6, I had a really tough time, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what I mean and the couple of ways that I had to kind of tackle that. But most of the injectors came out pretty smoothly. Just Injector 6 was really stuck in there and jammed. And to be honest, out of the off chance that you end up having a stuck injector like I did, I think having that hammer, or the slide hammer puller that they have there, is just going to be a lifesaver. When I ended up having to go back and do these later, because I got some bad injectors for the first batch, obviously, I had to basically get a slide hammer on the junk ones, and I just yanked them out real quick, and they popped out really easily and really quickly. And I gotta tell you, it just makes the job so much easier on some of these pulling things. If you don't have the money, you want to try and be really budget, you don't have to get it, but I highly recommend it for a lot of this going through. And obviously, as you're kind of breaking down into it, there's going to be torque spits you're going to need to take off these little retaining clips that are on these injectors, or retaining bar, more like it. And it's just like a T25, T30 Torx range. I don't remember exactly what the spec is. I'm not trying to make a tutorial on how to do injectors. Again, there's phenomenal YouTubers out there like Vehicular DIY. But the main thing is, you're going to need a couple of specialty tools like the torque spits. Besides that, basically just some couple basic wrenches, and you got yourself your injectors out. After that, it's really the software side of things that I think are really overall tough in this, and there's someone that made a really good video on downloading the software, and I'll kind of show you guys that with the link and in the description and so on, that you guys can take. But for the most part, once you get the program installed from the guy that the link I'll share down below, so you can guarantee you can find it, you basically can just follow any instructional video that shows you to do it. I think Vehicular DIY does a great job doing the instructional, but you can see here I tied a phone cable around the injector trying to pull it out for Injector 6, and to be real, it's not even what got it out. I'm not even using that as like a makeshift slide hammer with like a phone cable around it could get it out. I had to actually use a pry bar and really jam it up against the head. There's a supporting metal cylinder on the head there that basically I was able to pry against with the pry bar, which I don't fully recommend, but that is what I had to do to make this happen, and that's kind of what this turned into bit by bit. Real tough thing getting Injector 6 out, honestly. Again, if you can, I highly recommend getting the slide hammer tool. Here in just a little bit, I'll show you guys what I did for the first go around with the new seals and whatnot. Maybe a way you can do budget on that, but even then, I think that compression tool that they give you for the budget is really good. And here I kind of show you the wiring harness and whatnot, because I did end up breaking the ground on the injector 6 there. You can see the ground is broken on the or the wire is broken on the ground, so I had to resolder that as well on my own. And oopsie on me, you know, be careful when you're going in there and taking these out. When I was doing the whole slide hammer thing, it got caught on the cable and it just broke off the ground. It's really unfortunate, but it happens, and more or less that's kind of where we left off. At this point, with the injectors lined up, I'm more or less just kind of explaining or talking about how you should kind of keep them organized, because those numbers in the bottom side, the 585 or 575 and the 178, are really important for retuning the new injectors. And to a degree, like, the old numbers don't matter that much. It's the new numbers that really matter, but it's really important to know which cylinder you're going to put each injector into, because they're all going to have their own flow rates and power, draw that they're going to need. So if you put in the wrong flow rate and power draw, you're going to end up having, maybe not misfires, but a really rough running engine. And so it makes it a lot easier to line up the next numbers if you remember which cylinders you pulled it out of. Anyway, now that I have the injectors removed, I kind of started moving on to getting the new ones prepped up, or really these fake ones prepped up. And I found online a couple of ways that some people tried to make these work, where you expand the Teflon seals with some sort of, cone-shaped expanding tool of some sort, and then you can use these big pen caps to kind of compress it down to the size that would be relatively stock fitment. It didn't work out beautifully, as I'll show you here in a minute, but more or less, if you do want to try this process yourself, as it may possibly be a very functional way, I really don't see any reason why it may completely fail in a lot of cases, but it also doesn't feel as great as just getting a proper fitment. But you could basically get this pick set from Harbor Freight that's like this expanded pick set with these extra thick picks. And those extra thick picks, that shaft that holds down, the point, is basically like the near perfect size to fit on these Teflon pieces onto the injector end. And so you'll see here, as I expanded out with that, and I found out pretty quickly that you could basically just fit it right over the top. And then I took the big pen cap with a big Phillips head screwdriver. I expanded out the bottom side so it fit over, and then once I got it kind of lined up and over the top, I was able to get the big pen cap just to fit over and slowly push its way down. I found this was a little more successful if you did it in 2 stages. First, go down about halfway, get it to be kind of over and fit where it feels good. Make sure you don't pinch or crimp the overall Teflon seal itself on the way down, and then eventually get it all the way down like I'm showing here, and you'll see that's kind of all the way through. But you can see that little hairline there. I think because I rushed this one ended up getting a little bit of a shear or a split on the actual spot itself. This next one I'm showing you there really didn't have anything like that, and that one was halfway down. And so as this one kind of sat and the Teflon seal compressed, I would eventually get that one all the way down, and then I'd be able to install them, or do my best to install them. In the point of it, they didn't install super smooth. I had to tap them in a little bit with a socket at the end of it and a little bit of hammer to get it going in there. Didn't take a whole lot of force, but the force was still there. And when I did pull them out, they did look like the Teflon seals did shear a little bit. So can't fully recommend it. Anyway, with the new injectors in and the seals all set up, I basically just took the rest of the night to kind of download and set up the INPA, more or less diagnostic software to make sure I could tune in these injectors and get it all set up. Again, remember earlier that I talked about having the, them in order. And so what I'd recommend at this point is just make sure that you figure out which one's cylinder 1 and which one's cylinder 6. Figure out what the order is from front to back. Take notes down on which cylinder is which, obviously, so you don't forget or you don't lose track in case you need to go walk away and help somebody or eat a sandwich or take a nap. And then as you come back around on it, you're going to be replacing these numbers with the new ones on the injectors. So you can see I took the notes, labeled them 1 through 6, got them in order from top to bottom, made sure I knew which one was closest, which one was farthest, and then I basically just laid them out in order from like that, 1 through 6, left to right, top to bottom, and started lining up the next injector numbers that's going to get replaced with. And so overall, as I was kind of explaining this on camera and just trying to get it done, I found that doing the voiceovers would be a little bit easier. Alright, so through the magic of sketchy third-party reman from eBay, all of my energy values and flow values are exactly the same for every injector. They all quite literally had the value of 57.0 energy comparison value and 1.95 flow value. And this sketches me out, so we're gonna see what happens when we fire this thing up later, but at the end of the day, we just gotta run it. 57. Oh, unlock not working? So basically, pushing in the numbers, the first number you're given is a 3-digit, usually a 5-7, a 5-8, or a 5-9-5, something like that. And you're basically just going to divide that one by 10, so it's going to be 58.7, 57.5, whatever. And the second number is going to be that, oh, go ahead, 1.95 or 2.05 or 1.75. You're just going to go divide that by 100, 1.75. Afterwards, I just start to explain here that when you're doing this job yourself, make sure you tighten down the fuel line, adapter for the injector there into the fuel line to the injector so it doesn't leak. And then when you end up tightening the line onto the injector, make sure you hold still that adapter. That way you don't end up twisting your injector too much out of alignment, or in the same way to make sure you don't end up messing up. And here we have our first test start, our first attempt, or one of them. And I set everything up, and you see it just starts squirting gas everywhere, eh? We'll turn over the engine. It's not quite sealing up. And basically it finishes up while rewatching the footage, trying multiple different attempts of getting everything lined up. I did my best to try and tighten it up and to make these work, but they ended up breaking right off the top. And as I was looking at it later, I was like, man, the construction of these, I kind of noticed they looked a little weird, a little sketchy. I was calling these things sketchy all night and so on. And like the first one I just showed you there was like all stitch welded. This one's like fused together in a full solid, smooth overall connection across the way. It obviously penetrates really well. And then here's the broken one, right? You can see it basically doesn't penetrate whatsoever. You can see that little stitch weld at the end there, and there's no penetration through the middle and the side. These injectors on eBay, they're a scam. Do not buy them. It is a full-on scam. Find some used ones from someone that had a running car, and at least then you can clean them, maintenance them or something, or just go out and just buy some real injectors. Go buy some new ones. So with my opinions aside overall, more or less, yes, the eBay injectors were a scam. They literally broke in half with those solders and whatnot, and they didn't even have a solenoid in them to even run, a fuel jet in a sense, or to get fuel into your engine. So more or less, that's basically what ended up in this episode. The next one, I'm going to be basically knocking out all of the valve cover and getting it all said and done, getting it road ready. There's a lot of kind of rushing going on here because I only have a week left after this to kind of get the car up and running before I have to make this road trip out to California. So a lot of last second things being done, but I really hope you enjoy the series and in general the N54 series. It's mostly just about the sharing of a story and the experience, so I hope you guys enjoy that. And more content to come that's more descriptive or a little more interesting for other cars as well. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.